In the spring of 1907, inside a Haverhill, Massachusetts infirmary, a dying man's bed is balanced on a colossal industrial scale, his final breaths meticulously monitored for a sudden, impossible drop in weight. This bizarre deathbed procedure, conducted with crude industrial equipment, would accidentally launch one of the most enduring myths in modern history. But the truth of what happened in that room is not a simple story of science or faith. It is a cascade of flawed methods and desperate belief, and a result so specific it has refused to die, even under the crushing weight of scientific scrutiny. The experiment was born from an era of profound anxiety. At the dawn of the 20th century, humanity was caught in a violent collision between industrial science and ancient faith. The world was being measured, catalogued, and demystified. Electricity had tamed the night, the telegraph had conquered distance, and medicine was beginning to unravel the machinery of the body. Yet for every mystery science solved, the greatest one remained: death. This cultural desperation created a fertile ground for a new, hybrid belief system, a scientific spiritualism. The public, and even some men of science, craved empirical, measurable proof of the afterlife. They wanted a number. They wanted a fact. And one physician believed he could provide it. His name was Duncan MacDougall, and his subject was death itself. His theory was brutally simple. If the human soul was a real, tangible substance, then it must have mass. And if it has mass, it must have weight. Therefore, at the precise moment the soul departed the body must register a sudden, measurable drop in weight. To prove it, he constructed a deathbed apparatus, acquiring a massive, meticulously calibrated Fairbanks platform scale. He custom-built a light frame to hold a cot upon it, and his test subjects were sourced from local homes for the dying, specifically selecting patients suffering from terminal tuberculosis, a condition that ensured a slow, predictable decline with minimal movement. The stage was set for a scientific reckoning with the afterlife. The first patient was brought in. As the man's life faded, MacDougall and a team of colleagues watched the scales beam with fanatical intensity. For 3 hours and 40 minutes they waited. The man drew his last breath, and at that exact instant, the beam of the massive scale dropped. It fell, in MacDougall's own words, with an audible click. The weight loss was calculated. It was 3/4 of an ounce. Converted to the metric system, that is 21.3 grams. For MacDougall, this was not a coincidence. This was data. This was proof. But the cascade of evidence had just begun, and it would immediately start to decay. The second patient was wheeled onto the apparatus, but the team could not properly adjust the scales in time. The man died, and the result was discarded as unsatisfactory. The third patient showed a sudden drop of 1/2 ounce at the moment of death, but then, inexplicably, a further drop of another ounce a full minute later. The data was inconsistent, contaminated. The fourth patient, a woman dying from diabetic exhaustion, expired while the team was still attempting to calibrate the delicate scales. Her death was recorded not as a human tragedy, but as a great loss to our work. The bias was becoming clear. The fifth patient demonstrated a drop of 3/8 of an ounce, a result that did not align with the first and was summarily dismissed. The sixth and final patient died before he could even be moved onto the bed. The final tally was catastrophic. Of the 6 human trials, 4 produced no usable result. 1 produced a chaotic, multi-stage drop in weight. Only a single experiment, the very first, yielded the clean, dramatic data point of 21 grams. From a scientific perspective, the project was an unmitigated failure. But for a man with a foregone conclusion, one success was enough. The focus on patient 1 is crucial. He was an anonymous man dying of consumption in a charity ward. His final moments were not a sacred passage, but a clinical observation. His body was not a vessel for a spirit, but a variable in an equation. He was stripped of personhood and transformed into the foundation of a legend. His quiet, unremarked death was about to become one of the loudest, most persistent myths, a ghost story told with the language of physics. The human cost of the experiment was not just the questionable ethics of weighing the dying. It was the reduction of a human being to a single, sensational number. The experiment then descended into a darker, more cruel phase. To create a control group, MacDougall acquired 15 healthy dogs. He placed them one by one on the same massive scale, and then he poisoned them. As the animals died on the apparatus, he watched the beam. He recorded no sudden drop in weight. To the modern scientific mind, this reveals nothing more than the profound flaws in the experiment's premise and equipment. But to MacDougall, the conclusion was stark and world-changing. The dogs lost no weight because they had no souls to lose. This finding, born from a callous and unscientific procedure, was presented as the final damning piece of evidence. Humans had souls that weighed 21 grams. Animals did not. This is the moment the entire premise collapses under its own weight. The scientific explanation for the 21-gram anomaly is not supernatural. It is brutally, disappointingly mundane. Firstly, the human body at the moment of death experiences a sudden cessation of respiration and circulation. This causes a slight rise in body temperature, which in turn accelerates sudoral evaporation, the release of sweat and moisture from the skin and through the last breaths. This loss of water has weight. Secondly, a warm body cooling on a sensitive scale can create subtle air convection currents, physically affecting the balance mechanism. Thirdly, and most damningly, the equipment itself was hopelessly inadequate. The Fairbanks scale, while precise for weighing silk, was never designed for the microscopic sensitivity required for such a claim. Its own margin of error was larger than the very phenomenon it was supposed to detect. The experiment was never successfully replicated by any other scientist anywhere. It exists as a solitary, unprovable claim. So if the science was so obviously, so immediately fraudulent, why are we still talking about it more than a century later? Because MacDougall did not hide his findings, he published them. In 1907, his research appeared in the prominent journal American Medicine. Even more critically, it was picked up by the New York Times. The claim was laundered, given the appearance of credibility by the authority of print. The story had a powerful, almost poetic simplicity. It was a headline, a powerful number, 21 grams, that was specific, tangible, and easy to remember. The scientific community's backlash was immediate. A physician named Augustus P. Clark published a brutal rebuttal, pointing out the obvious flaws. He explained the role of sweat evaporation and the cessation of breathing. He condemned the experiment's lack of rigor and its impossible conclusions. But his critique was dry, technical science. MacDougall's claim was a sensational epic. It was a battle between sober reality and a beautiful, desirable fiction. The fiction won. The headline outlived the correction. The legacy of this moment is a piece of cultural trauma. It is a viral infection of misinformation that has become a permanent part of our global lexicon. The phrase 21 grams has detached completely from its dubious origin. It is now a poetic fact, a shorthand for the soul. It was the title of a critically acclaimed 2003 film starring Sean Penn. It appears in novels, in song lyrics, in television shows, as a profound-sounding statement on the weight of a human life. It is treated not as a debunked theory, but as a mysterious truth. The story of 21 grams is not the story of a successful experiment. It is the story of a successful myth. It reveals a chilling truth about our own minds, our deep, desperate need for certainty in the face of the ultimate unknown. We are willing to accept a beautiful lie built on flawed data over a complex, unsatisfying truth. The experiment in that Haverhill infirmary did not weigh the soul. It measured the immense gravity of human hope and the shocking lightness of scientific proof required to launch a legend that refuses to die.